Hello, and welcome back to the Hello Velocity podcast, where we help corporate women level up without burning out. I'm your host, Brittany Knaski, leadership coach and trainer here at Hello Velocity, and welcome to season 3 of the podcast. I'm so excited to be back, and I've realized that this has turned into a pretty good cadence that I didn't expect would be such an easy flow for me going from season to season. But I love this idea of doing seasons that are themed and having about 12 weeks of content per season, and then I take a few months off. And then by the time, I've taken those few months off, I'm starting to miss the podcast again. So it's been a good cadence getting into this rhythm. And for season 3 here, I've been thinking about this topic for months, actually. Even when I was recording season 2, this topic kept coming to mind, and I thought, it may shift by the time I sit down to record season 3, but it is still true that this is something very top of mind with a lot of my clients right now, and that is stress and burnout. So I know it's not the most exciting, uplifting topic, but it is very, very important, very impactful, because so many of us, myself included, still struggle with stress, overwhelm, burnout, all of these things. And it comes up all the time with my clients. And I've noticed, especially these last few months, even over the holidays, especially, that is a topic that is really relevant and comes up a lot. But then just getting back into the flow of the new year, I feel like this is just still coming up over and over again with my clients. So it's one of those year-round important topics that I feel like is really important for us to be digging into this season in the podcast. And just like last season, we will be bringing on some guests for you to learn from different experts, from people who are talking about stress and anxiety every day in their work, or people who are also just navigating this just like you and I. And I just think it's really helpful to hear from different perspectives because we're all going through very similar things. But I think a lot of times we just don't have these conversations with other people. So I want to highlight these conversations, to normalize these conversations, and provide different areas of support for you all. And even for myself, I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot this season as well about stress and burnout. And yeah, so let's dive in. So I thought a good place for us to start this season when talking about stress and burnout is to actually define these different terms that we're using on a day-to-day basis, sometimes interchangeably. But I want to really highlight the differences between these terms that we're going to use all season, but also that you're using on a day-to-day basis already. Because I think a lot of times we use these terms interchangeably, or we don't really understand the differences between them. And even again, as I was prepping for this podcast, I feel like I'm already learning a lot. And I think it's really helpful for us to highlight those. So the 4 keywords I want us to talk about today are stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout. So I'm sure you've heard of all of these. I'm sure you use these all the time in your own language. But I want to define these each specifically so that you can understand on a deeper level what they really mean, so that you can then approach each of these in a unique way based on which situation you're in and which of these you're finding yourself in, because each of these has different needs in itself. So I want you to understand, first of all, which is which one you are in the moment so you can identify it, but then also you can then approach it with the support that you need for each of these uniquely. So first things first is stress. This is a physical, mental, or emotional reaction to external circumstances. So essentially, there's something that's happening in your situation or a certain situation happening outside of your control, usually, that is causing some sort of stress on you physically, mentally, or emotionally. So an example could be your boss asking you to start a new project when you're already at max capacity, or it could be someone changing the deadline on a project, or it could be your kid getting sick. So these are very specific, kind of one-off situations that are going to cause those physical, mental, or emotional stressors on you. Next is anxiety. So anxiety is more of that feeling of fear or uneasiness, usually based on response to anticipated future events. So this is more internal based, where stress is something happening outside of you. The anxiety is typically based on your internal thoughts and fears about something that could potentially happen in the future. So it's not to say anything specifically has already happened. It's that you are really just anticipating it happening and most likely thinking that it's going to go poorly. and you're essentially causing this anxiety internally. So a good example here would be anticipating a big client meeting that you have tomorrow, and you're feeling anxious going into it. You're feeling anxious the night before. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping. And this is another indicator of anxiety, is that you can also have those physical symptoms come up based on or caused by those internal fears and thoughts that you're having. So you may find yourself, again, lacking sleep or having trouble sleeping. You may be getting sweaty. You may feel your heart rate pulsing. These are all indications of anxiety as well. Next is overwhelm. And as I was trying to find a good definition of this, I actually came across Brené Brown's favorite quote and definition of overwhelm from a professor of mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn. And his definition is that overwhelm is feeling like our lives are somehow unfolding faster than the human nervous system and psyche are able to manage well. And that was another theme that I saw in different definitions here, is this like sudden urge of emotion. It's almost like a avalanche, right? Like all of these things are starting to pile up and kind of feel like they're spinning out of control. So an example here would be, maybe you're already at max capacity at work. You are already having several of those individual stressors. You have different deadlines coming up. You have a new urgent project that came up. You have a new client that keeps emailing you, and your kid is sick. And it feels like maybe that final straw of just too much to handle. And you really think, I don't know how I can handle all this. That is that overwhelm, that build up to this moment of something kind of snapping, of just, this is just too much. And kind of that feeling of like drowning in all of your responsibilities. Okay, now lastly is burnout. And this is a state of chronic physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged unmanaged stress. So again, you'll notice this is slightly different language than the last few, and that this is more of a long-term thing. So maybe this last example of overwhelm, of all of these different projects that are due, maybe this has been happening for months. Maybe you've had all of these urgent requests, deadlines, needy clients. It's been 3 months in the making, or it's this long-term project that's been 3 months, and it just keeps piling up, piling up, piling up. You're getting more and more responsibility. It feels like there's nothing that can release this tension, and you just feel like there's no end in sight. You've been working late nights, you've been working weekends, and you're just trying to keep everything together and keep everything going. But it just feels like no amount of rest on the weekends can really help reduce this amount of stress or this fatigue that you're feeling. So again, I think it's really important for us to understand these different levels, because so many of us use these different terms every day. And especially the term burnout, I think everyone's been using that a lot lately. And I want us to be just really clear on what this really means and what it looks like on the day-to-day basis, so that you know which of these states that you're in. Is this just a short-term one-off stressor of some new project happening at work that's stressing you out? Or is this something that's been months in the making and you're really getting no rest? You're not feeling like you can reduce this level of stress, and it's causing more mental, emotional, or even physical symptoms, and there's something deeper that needs to be shifting for you, or something that needs to change. And my intention for this season and covering these various topics is really to help you see that there is so much more in your control than you probably think in the moment, where, again, I talk with clients all the time, and I've even been going through some burnout in the last year as well. And a lot of times I think when we're in burnout, especially, and overwhelm, is that we a lot of times feel like we just kind of have to write it out. You know, there's just so much happening at us, to us, that it feels like it's out of our control. There's nothing we can do. We just need to see these projects through, and then we can finally take a deep breath, right? Do you ever feel like that? I want you to really be able to distinguish between these two, so that you can understand, first of all, where you are in the moment, but then also understand the support you would need based on these different types of stressors that you are likely going through at all different points in your life and work. And as you get to know these better, and as you get to know how you approach each of these differently and how they show up uniquely for you, that's my other intention, is that you'll be able to manage these better. You'll be able to interrupt these cycles sooner and better so that they aren't these repeatable cycles and patterns that keep happening over and over again. I don't want it to be this thing where burnout feels like it's this multiple month long thing that you just have to continue to write it out and you have to keep being tired and exhausted and angry and irritable and tired. I want you to be able to notice when all signs are pointing to burnout, and I want you to be able to do something about it so that you don't have to spend months suffering, and instead you can seek out the support that you need. You can take control of your life, of your work, get the support you need, and make it better for you. So again, start to think about these different types of stress, whether it's stress, anxiety, overwhelm, burnout. Think about what's your relationship to each of these. How do they typically show up for you? Again, are you one of those people that feels like you've been in burnout for a year, a few years, a few months? Or did you never realize it was burnout that you've been going through the last few months? Or are you someone who uses a term, I'm anxious all the time, and doesn't really think about what that means? And it's just something you say, but you're not trying to do anything about it to change it? Are you kind of taking a backseat to some of these and just letting them take over and trying to write it out until that season passes? Do you use this language interchangeably and now you're starting to realize the difference between them? One of my favorite quick tips that I learned from my own therapist last year while working through anxiety is to actually even shift your language around how you're talking about anxiety, especially, so that instead of saying, I am anxious, start to shift your language to say, I'm feeling anxious. It's a very subtle shift in language, but it can really shift how you even relate to this feeling so that it's almost like you're detaching yourself from it. And it's not, we don't want it to feel like it's your identity. You don't want your identity to be, I'm anxious. We want to detach ourselves from it and it become what it is a feeling. And feelings are things that can come and go. We're less in control of them, yes, but I don't want it to become your identity that you are just an anxious person and you're always anxious, right? There's that huge difference, even just from an empowering sense for yourself as when you're talking about it. When you say, I'm feeling anxious, it's something that, again, goes to this idea of it can pass. It's not something you're stuck with. It's not in control of you. It's just a feeling. So that is my first favorite quick tip when it comes to especially anxiety. And it's something I'm still working on myself too. So it may take some time to shift that habit too and shift your language. But it's a great place to start. Another place I want you to look, and this would be a great exercise for you to take 10, 20 minutes today to really sit down and think through this for yourself, is to really map out what your overwhelm pattern is. And this is one of those tools that I do with my clients. And again, it's come up so many times over the last few months. I think most of my clients have had to do this in the last few months because we've gone through some stage of overwhelm. And you can do it on your own, is to, again, take some time to really sit down and think about what it looks like and what it feels like when you're overwhelmed. And I want you to map it out step by step because, again, I've done this so many times with clients and myself. It really is a repeatable pattern that we go through over and over again. So think about 2 to 3 times in the last few years where you've been really overwhelmed and think back to how it all started. Think back to when things were great and you weren't stressed out. What did that look like? And then what were those key factors or situations, conversations, or things that happened that started to add stress to you? And what was that breaking point where it felt like too much? Where did it become overwhelm for you? What did that look like? How did you know you were in that point of overwhelm? And I found with my clients doing this so many different times that most of us have 10 to 14 distinct stages of this overwhelm pattern. So it's, again, these different steps that lead into it. It's not just that, oh, one day you were going about your work, you weren't very stressed, and then someone asked you for one new thing and you completely blew everything up and it felt like you were completely overwhelmed and you didn't know what to do. It's not that simple. It really is honestly like 10 to 14 steps for most people. So think about all the different factors involved, all the different feelings you had along the way, all the different thoughts that you had along the way that were causing you to either continue to take on more or, again, to feel that level of stress. So I'll walk you through a common example of what these various steps look like. So our first step in the pattern, again, is the neutral state of you're going along steady, you have a plan, you're following through it, and things feel like they're going according to plan. You're in a good place, you're not stressed out. Then the next step could be someone asks for something new that's not on the plan, or a deadline changes, something out of your control happens. And then maybe there's another step that something else happens or changes, or something happens personally that's stressing you out. And then you might notice the next step is that you continue to say yes when people are asking you for things. And you think, okay, it's fine. I've got this. I know I can handle it. And maybe the next thought is that you feel like you just have to figure it out because there's no one else that can help and you are the go-to person. So you feel bad saying no. So I'm just going to figure it out. And then maybe another person asks for something else. And then the next step, you feel like the plan is going out the window and you're starting to become very reactive to what other people are asking of you. You're not thinking strategically anymore. You're not following your to-do list or your plan. And then you get into this go, go, go. I just got to get things done. I've got to kind of that like knee-jerk reaction of just get something done. As soon as it hits my plate, I'm just going to do it to be done because I'm just drowning in so many different things. So I'm going to be grabbing anything that I can do to get done. And then you're starting to go for maybe quick fixes and just shortcuts, trying to get anything done so you can feel like you're not drowning in responsibilities anymore. You might notice at this point you're, feeling really tense in your body. Your shoulders are going up. You have that tense feeling in your chest or a heaviness in your chest, and you feel like you're just going so quickly and you're sweating and you're just can't come up for a breath and you're just go, 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 go. And then you feel like maybe you might notice you're starting to get short-tempered and a little irritable even at home, and you're being more cranky than usual. And then you find yourself thinking, I just want to walk away. I just don't want to do anything anymore. I'm just going to blow it up, right? I'm just going to stop. And you kind of fantasize about walking away from it all. But then one of these big deliverables is done and okay, you can take a deep breath again. And you start to wind down and you're thinking, wow, I did it all. I can't believe I did it all. And things are done. And you're slowing down again. And then you're back to that even state of going back to a plan, or you're resetting yourself and you're bringing back your to-do list and you're starting to think more proactively and strategically again, right? Notice how it was kind of like everything starts kind of steady and then it goes up, 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 up. And then there's a breaking point of wanting to throw it all away or walk away from it all or quit your job, whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you. And then it kind of starts to come back down, right? So I want you to try to find what those specific patterns are for you. And again, usually 10 to 14 steps I've found, and really sit with it and think about the last few times something like this has happened. And you'll start to notice these patterns and these thoughts and these habits that you have. And from there, you go back through the steps 10 to 14. And I want you to think, within each of those steps, how could you interrupt this pattern so that it doesn't play out all the way through again? Because again, this is a very cyclical thing and you'll find yourself doing it over and over again. So I want you to, first of all, be able to notice when you're in this cycle, when things are starting to go up, so that you don't have to hit that breaking point. So it's that early part of the curve as the stressors are going up, up, up. I want you to be able to really tell what those steps are for you and what those feelings are, so that you can then go back and notice it in the moment as it's happening and interrupt it. And even think about each of those steps. How could I interrupt this? Well, when someone's asking for something new, maybe asking more questions. What is the deadline? Is the deadline negotiable? How does this change my other priorities? What else am I working on right now? And can I get back to you to see if I can commit to this instead of just our knee-jerk reaction to say yes to everyone and everything, right? We want to start thinking about what are some of these cues for you to be able to stop this pattern. And again, this is one of my favorite tools I do with all my clients, is really identifying your own overwhelm steps and patterns and how to interrupt them. It sounds super simple. It can be very simple to identify it, but it's not easy to interrupt it in the moment because we've done these habits and patterns probably our whole lives, and other people are now involved too. When other people are asking you to help them with something, and they may be used to you always saying yes and may just assume that you're going to say yes and may pressure you to say yes. So we need to understand it again for ourselves so that we can interrupt it, and especially have maybe some of those scripts that you can use when talking with other people so that you don't go down the knee-jerk reaction of just saying yes to everything, and you can come up with new ways to have those conversations, to push back, and to not overwhelm yourself. Overwhelm is definitely one of these key areas in life that I think most of us just think we have to continue to play out this cycle because it's what we know and it's what we're familiar with. And by identifying this cycle, and especially, writing it out step by step, identifying these different cues, it'll help you see it for what it is. And that's just a pattern. It's a habit that we're doing. And I want you to, similar to what we said earlier, is like detach it from yourself. This isn't something you have to continue to play out, but by getting it out, writing it down on paper, identifying it for what it is, it'll help you choose something different. It'll help you see that this is just a step-by-step pattern that I often do, and I can choose to do something different. I want to do something more empowering. I don't want to continue to play out these cycles that are actually causing me way more stress. They are causing me more anxiety. They are causing me to be irritable, to be angry, to be short-tempered, to be, losing sleep, and to be, stressed out in my day-to-day. We can choose something different, and the first step is always just the awareness of the overwhelm and how it usually goes so that you can choose something different. You can choose something more empowering, and you can lower your stressors along the way. So again, I'm so excited for this season to be talking about different angles of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, burnout with all these different guests that we're going to be bringing on that have really cool takeaways and really helpful resources for all of you as we're talking about these different topics and how to interrupt these patterns, how to get different support that we may need along the way, and how to proactively manage stress so that it's not something that we just get swept away in. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like or subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast platform. It really helps new people find the podcast and in turn find the support that they're looking for as well. That's it for today. See you in the next episode.